Welcome in, I'm Dirt Farmer. This is our family farm out here in Montana, and this week we might actually get the combine out of here and start working on that. And my sinuses are still pretty plugged up, so if my voice sounds a little bit off, that's the reason why. However, to get the combine out, we do have a little bit of stuff to get moved out of the way though. It's a little bit easier with two people, but it's not too bad, so just takes a little bit extra time with one person. Since we got this thing out, we'll go for a quick little ride around the yard, that way you guys can see the cow. We're just going to be heading over to the chem fallow field. So you know what? I'm going to rev this guy up to medium speed here. I don't want to go full speed yet. Like I said, still just kind of waiting on everything to warm up here. And then we're just gonna bring our speeds up here. What I'm doing is just kind of listening for anything. Or if we got any squealing or anything like that. We're up here on top of the combine and I just shut it off about 1 minute ago, but I'm going to show you guys how we drain the oil in this thing. So I come here in the little engine bay and there's actually a little valve down here. I got to get turned. And once that's turned, we should be draining oil here. So we're going to run down to the ground and go check. Actually, we can probably see it right through there. And sure enough, we can see the oil is draining out right into our bucket there. So if you thought changing the oil on a combine was pretty difficult, it's actually a pretty simple job. We're back on top, we're done draining the oil. We actually already got the old filter off of here. And we're just kind of getting everything ready for refill. And so I'm starting to fill up the filter, and I figured I'd start filling up the oil as well because that's where it gets filled at. And we got all of our oil up here as well. While we're up here, I might as well mention what I'm going to be doing next, which is going to be the fuel filters. So yeah, we have the 2 fuel filters right there, and that's pretty simple changing those out as well. After I get done with this oil change and then the fuel filters, then I'll start going through it and checking if there's anything I need to get fixed on this thing. And when it dries out enough to get down to the pivots, I'll actually have to run down and go get the header as well, because I know that thing is probably definitely going to need some work. So this has been about a 3-hour long oil change as well too, because I kind of keep chatting with some of the neighbors. So sometimes in farming, your neighbors just stop by when they see you're in the yard working on stuff. So actually 2 of my neighbors have stopped by this afternoon, and then one of our CHS salesmen stopped by as well too. So yeah, I got to do lots of chatting this afternoon as well, which means my voice is probably going to be gone again tonight. Another job I'm going to have to get done this week is getting our chem fallow finished up spraying. So I only got about 300-ish acres left of that. But I got to get the water filled up, and then actually right now while I'm filling the water up, I figured it'd be a good time to figure out what is going on with this sprayer. If you guys remember from last week, we had some issues with it overheating, so I can already see our coolant is a little bit low again. So maybe our coolant's just lower, we got another leak somewhere, but either way, I'm gonna top this thing off. I'm actually gonna leave the cap off and start the truck and run it for a while. That way, if there's any air pockets in there, we can get all the air out of that thing. So something I've been wanting to do for a while is get a little bit bigger mower. And we do have one, however, it didn't really hook up to this little tractor. And I don't think the video does it justice, but this thing is way bigger than the tractor itself. And actually, the tractor can barely turn this thing over, so I do have to have the throttle up quite a bit just to actually get the PTO engaged. And the initial problem I had was the pins are actually the wrong size. So this thing actually uses a lot bigger pins, and then this thing has little tiny holes for the pins. So I actually just had to take some bolts and make my own. But what I'm gonna do is get rid of the nuts because they kind of come loose over time. So what I'm gonna do instead is take these bolts and I'm gonna drill a hole through them. That way we can use these little pins. You can actually see we got one of the pins sitting right there. That'll just make things a whole lot simpler. I wanted to use the bolts and the nuts just to kind of test everything out and make sure it actually worked with the tractor, which I did actually mow a little bit of the yard this morning. I got this one chunk right over there mowed up in about 5 minutes, actually maybe even less than that, because that's the nice thing with the 10-foot mower. It's a lot bigger than the little tiny 54-inch mower we have for doing all the yards. And that's the main reason I wanted to go with this setup, is just because it takes like 5 or 6 hours to mow all the yards, so I just wanted something that was a little bit quicker. That way I'm not just spending so much time mowing. On my way to town to go grab some parts, however, I wanted to stop and show you guys this quick. So this is like a 10-foot ditch, and this is actually near one of our fields here. But you can see with that last rain, it literally went across the road again. So yeah, we just had a ton of water coming through here. Like I said, to actually go over the road here again, and this is, like I said, a 10-foot tall ditch here, which is just crazy. Out driving around checking some fields this morning because I do have a little bit more chem fallow to spray. However, that's one thing I figured I'd chat about, and that is I'm always kind of watching my rear view mirrors in the pickup here whenever I'm out driving around checking fields for spraying, because when we're spraying, that is about the biggest thing we got to watch out for is the wind. And I'll use that field as an example for why we got to watch the winds. On that end of the field, we do have one of our fields, which makes it a little bit simpler. Then on that side, we have one of the neighbor's fields, and on the other side across the road is that same neighbor's other field. And then on this side of the road, we actually have a different neighbor's field. So yeah, we're kind of almost surrounded by all the neighbor's stuff. We're very careful about spraying around other neighbors' crops and stuff because you don't want to be accidentally spraying some of their crops, especially when it's a different type of crop, because some of those chemicals can be very potent on different types of crops. But while I'm down here checking things, I might as well grab the header because that's one thing I did want to grab and get taken back to the yard one of these days. And I guess not. It looked like one of the tires was pretty low, so I figured we better just go back to the yard, get the service pickup, then we can bring that back out here because it does have the air compressor on it. The half stored inside header is ready to go back to the yard, and when I say half stored, I mean because it doesn't actually fit all the way inside that little tiny shed. Out in the pea field here, and we're getting ready to do our one whole pass. So yeah, just one pass is all we're gonna be doing, and we're not even gonna be using the entire boom width. We're only actually gonna be using this last section, so just kind of that far section out there is the only one we're gonna be using. We're done with our one pass, and now we're gonna get things ready to switch back over to chem fallow. One of the things we need to do when switching to chem fallow is actually change our rate. So all we have to do is switch this little guy from rate 2 back to rate 1. And so actually right here you can see this is our rate 2 is set for 10 gallons per acre, and then rate 1 is set for 5 gallons per acre. Now the next part takes a little bit longer. So what we have to do is actually change our nozzle bodies here. So all we do is we take these and we got to switch them back to these yellow tips. So you guys can probably see it. Those yellow tips are for our 5 gallon per acre work, and then pretty tough to see, but those little red tips are actually for our 10 gallon per acre work, and then those brown ones are actually for our liquid nitrogen. So just depending on the year, some years we put liquid nitrogen down with the sprayer. We didn't do any this year, but it makes kind of a stream with that brown nozzle. And this is pretty interesting because I didn't notice this until I just went to go turn around on the end here, but there's almost kind of a line like right there. Pretty tough to see. It's actually a lot easier to see in real life in person here. But this is the stuff we hadn't sprayed yet, and then this is the stuff that we did over on this side, and you can actually see it's a lot thicker on all the stuff we already sprayed. And so we actually put that foliar blend stuff down with all of our other chemicals for killing the weeds and everything like that. And yeah, like I said, you can see it's just a lot thicker, and it's actually a lot more vibrant green on the stuff that got sprayed already. So that's why we use all these chemicals and stuff, is because we're trying to get the best yield. That way we can produce more food and get everybody fed. And that is why we farm, is to make food so people can eat. And with the population growing every year, we're gonna have to produce more food. So that's part of it, is using all these chemicals to control the weeds and to gain higher yields. So instead of trying to make my own pins for that mower, they actually had some in town. It's only 10 bucks for a pin, so I just got 2 of them. I figured that was simpler than trying to make my own. Except there is one issue. The end is actually not big enough, so it'll actually go through the hole. So what I'm gonna do is just add a washer on the end of this thing just to kind of help hold it in there. To get the washer to fit, I'm gonna have to take a little metal off of this thing, and I'm gonna show you the quick and easy way to do that. And the simplest way to remove metal is always the plasma torch. A picture perfect morning to do a little bit of some spraying. I'm just actually heading out to the field right now, but on the left hand side we got some of our irrigated peas, and then actually on the right hand side is some of our neighbor's mustard that's looking just absolutely beautiful. With all the rain and water we have this year, it's been a little bit different. We've definitely had a couple sketchy moments, like this morning where I was trying to cross this little water hole and I about got stuck, but we did make it through. And we're doing pretty good. It's just after 7 o'clock, and I started right after 5 o'clock spraying, so we've actually got a bunch of stuff done, and we're actually just about done with all the pivot corners. Oh, that's a fun way to start the day. It's just after 8 o'clock now, and I just got this thing buried in the mud, so we're probably sitting about a foot or over a foot deep on this front tire here. Back tire's not as bad, but it's still definitely pretty deep too. The other fun thing too is my uncle's in North Dakota, so I'm the only person here on the farm this week. So I just called up my brother and my dad. They're both busy spraying at their farm, so I don't know when I'm gonna have anyone able to come even just give me a ride to get me back to the yard type of thing now. A huge thank you to my neighbor. He came and gave me a ride, so it saved me a ton of time and some walking, and it saved my brother and my dad some time so they don't have to run over and come help me now. But what we're doing now is we're out here in the New Holland tractor. We're gonna be taking this guy out there and seeing if hopefully we can get this thing pulled out by ourselves now. The New Holland got us pulled out, so we are done spraying here. I actually just got done spraying this field out here. And we're gonna actually head up and see how the wind's doing, and we got one more field to get done too. To end off the week, we actually did a little live stream this morning over on YouTube showing off the combine. We actually unfolded it all and took everything apart. I started just kind of looking at some of this stuff, seeing if we got anything that's gonna need adjusted or replaced on this big old thing. Fun little Saturday afternoon project. My uncle's back from vacation and we're heading down to the river to get our radiator installed for our big irrigation pump. About 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, and we got our radiator put back on the engine here, and I actually did start it for a little bit, made sure there wasn't any leaks or anything. So our engine side looks like it's good. However, we still have a little bit of work to do because we need to get that clutch that we picked up in Billings put back on here, and then we got to get our drive line put back on between the two, because we can have the engine running right now, but we just can't get any water moved yet. But it ended up being just a beautiful day, and we're actually not quite done yet because we actually got to stop down at the pivots and check a pipe down there as well too. And up the hill goes the boss with the trailer and the little John Deere tractor there. And it's pretty dry on the hill, I'll say that. Tons and tons of sand blowing, that's for sure. So we stopped at the main road, and my uncle's taking the little John Deere tractor down here right now. But we're gonna try to get all this stuff lined up. So you can see our booster pump's kind of sitting there, but it's not perfectly straight. And then our main pipe is really not lining up well. So we're gonna try to use the little John Deere tractor just to kind of finagle things and get them all lined up straight. We got the valve, our pipe, our booster pump all put back in there. So this thing's almost ready to go as well now too. So that's probably a good spot to end off the video for the week. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next week.